If I could have your attention, please. I'd like to welcome you to our City Council meeting this January the 23rd, 2020. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council, unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments, and every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. Please silence all electronic devices. At this time, we will have our invocation by Pastor Jay McKeag from Crossroads Baptist Church, who's also the chaplain for St. Cloud Regional Medical Center. Could we all please stand together, remain standing for the pledge after the invocation?
Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for the privilege that we have to be able to come together as a community and to guide our community, Father. Father, we thank you for those that you've given the mantle of leadership to, and we pray, Father, that you'll give them wisdom that they need to make good and wise decisions, decisions that benefit the community as a whole. Father, we pray for peace and order tonight. We pray, Father, that everything that's done here brings honor and glory to you. Father, we recognize the privilege we have to live in a country where we have the freedoms to be able to speak our hearts, Father, and to be able to bring up issues and have them discussed. Father, we pray that we never take that for granted. We also pray, Father, that everything that we do is done in a right way, in a way that brings honor not only to you, but to each other, Father. And Father, we just commit this entire time into your hands. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Askew.
Here.
Councilmember Trace.
Here.
First, we have a proclamation in recognition of Purple Heart City to John Hillary and Karen Hillary. We invite you to come up and stand with us. Very good. It's good to have you here. Whereas the city of St. Cloud, located in the heart of Florida in Osceola County, has a large, highly decorated veteran population, including many Purple Heart recipients, and has always supported the military veteran population. And whereas the Purple Heart, the oldest military decoration in use today, evolved from the Badge of Military Merit created by General George Washington for the common soldier in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart is awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces that have been wounded or killed in combat with a declared enemy of the United States of America. And whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among the combat wounded veteran and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative, and most importantly, make sure we never forget. And whereas the contribution and support of the city of St. Cloud, Florida, and Osceola County is vital to the citizens of the United States of America as to our military history and heritage. And whereas the city of St. Cloud, along with the Military Order of Purple Heart, the Harry R. Alexander Memorial Chapter 535 FF-4, appreciate the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, and believe it is important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the support they have earned. Now, therefore, I, Nathan Blackwell, Mayor of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, do hereby proclaim this city as a Purple Heart City in honor of all combat wounded veterans and to fully support the Military Order of the Purple Heart. Thank you for serving our country. Would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, fellow patriots, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Purple Heart chapter in beautiful city of Lakeland, Florida, I accept your proclamation to become a Purple Heart city. I am very honored to stand here to receive this document from you and your commissioners. We are very humbled by your support of our organization and the work that we have done in your community. I am very grateful for the wording of those proclamations, acknowledging the sacrifices made by the combat wounded veteran here in St. Cloud and Osceola County, Florida. I feel personally honored to be part of your historical ceremony. I will take every necessary action to ensure that this city is placed on the National Register as a Purple Heart City. Signed, John Hillary, Senior Vice Commander, Military Order of the Purple Heart. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll get a picture.
There's not enough words to thank you. I'll take that. Thank you. There's certainly not enough words to thank all of the men and women who have faithfully served our country in the military, and especially those who have gone the second mile by being wounded in combat. We are incredibly grateful, and we count it an honor to be considered a Purple Heart city. At this time, we have a presentation of the Employee of the Month by Nasim Gondor.
Thank you, sir. So it's my pleasure to bring forth John Moore, also his supervisor, Scott Adams. So I'm Nasim Gondor. I am the Public Works Director here at our fine city, St. Cloud. So I want to show, extend the city's appreciation for the efforts that John Moore had done, specifically on November. So he's our November Employee of the Month. On November, Scott's actually here. He decided to take a vacation, a well-deserved vacation, I'll say, and left me this individual. I'll say this was probably I was still in my first month here, actually. And I said, Scott, okay, enjoy your vacation, and I'm going to look at John to, just run your day-to-day operations. Well, on November 12th, an event occurred, and as everyone well knows, that when we have damage to a road, it either happens early in the morning or late in the day. This particular one over on Nolte Road happened late in the day. I get a phone call saying, hey, the road over Nolte Road is got water coming out of it. And this is from John. And I'm like, John, no, I don't believe roads are supposed to be, water is supposed to be coming out of roads. I'm an engineer. This is from some schooling that I've taken, that, roads typically stay dry. So John gave me the more in-depth detail. I went out there, met John out on the field, and John was already out in the field leading a crew of other individuals from our streets and stormwater team to safe up the area with MOTs, which is the traffic control devices, to ensure that no one was going to get hurt. He was already identifying where what was going on, where the water was coming from, and of course, contacting the other individuals to actually do the repairs. So by the time I got out there, John actually did half of my job by taking charge. I'm very appreciative of that. The other efforts that John made during this repair was that Nolte Road it occurred on November 12th, at the end of the day, and then going into a weekend. So John, took charge of the situation and made sure that the road was partially open for the weekend, because the Nolte Road right by Bunninger is a critical intersection in our opinion. Especially John knew that because he's been here in St. Cloud for quite some time. How many years about now? A lot of years. I'll just say a lot of years. He's been here way long, probably longer than I've been alive. I'll just say it like that. No, a little shy, but so he was well aware of this situation, and then other than making sure that the road was open to allow for some traffic, because even though it was right by a school, and he understood how contentious it could be with all the traffic flowing in and out, so he made sure that he was adjusting for those traffic cones and communicating with other individuals in order to get it done, and also, but making sure that the temporary repairs that we did would also allow for expedited repair the following week, and he was able to communicate with the contractor and also with our procurement office to make sure that everything was done, through the legal ease of the people that ensure that we do things the proper way. Engineers we do things fast, for sure. And then on the following Monday, we were able to go ahead and start executing the final repairs with the contractor. So by the time Scott here came back from his vacation, all the troubles that he left for me was actually being taken care of by John here, and I myself definitely is very appreciative for what John had done, and not only did he do it for me, which I'm sure he did, but he definitely did it for the city of St. Cloud. So John, thank you very much.
You want to say something? Thank you so much. You've made a huge difference. I appreciate it.
Thought about it.
We'd like to You ready? Like it?
For a picture. Oh, I'm short, so. Okay.
Thank you for being a second miler. Let me see if I got everything here. I think there's a. So two for you. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. The next part of our agenda is our Citizens Forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not in this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the City Council. Each person requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Dolores Roeder, is that correct?
Correct. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
My address is Post Office Box 702105, St. Cloud, Florida, 34770. I've been here since 1986. I want to address the so-called sinkhole that's on Old Canoe Creek Road by the Publix. Now, I've heard it said it was a sinkhole. I've heard it said it's some kind of a water leak or water, but I don't know what it is, and you all have probably addressed it. I haven't been here for a while, so I don't know. But the thing that bothers me is I don't see anybody doing anything to it, and the traffic is hellacious. It's caused so many traffic jams, and that's not fair to us. And I look at Japan, they have sinkholes all the time, and they fill them in with whatever they can fill them in with, and they have it all done. If it's a sinkhole, it shouldn't be that difficult. So I don't know what the problem is, but I certainly would like to know, because I look at all the different ways we're supposed to go to, and that's a straight outright road that needs to be fixed. And I'm a concerned citizen, and I don't like detours, and I don't like traffic jams and pileups. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dolores. We're certainly in agreement with that. I'll ask our city manager if he'll address what is going on there so that you can be updated.
Thank you, Dolores. First off, it's not a sinkhole. It was a stormwater pipe that collapsed. It's a specialty sized pipe, so we had to go out and find that. Actually, tonight, you'll see there's an emergency order to start repairs, and they actually started on the repairs yesterday. We've been working with the traffic engineers. We put up some traffic lights at David Graham, or Sergeant Graham, to help with traffic, and we're doing everything humanly possible. We're expecting to be done, depending on weather, by the end of February.
February?
Yeah, the whole road collapsed underneath. We actually got under there today. There's, on the north side of the road, there's some collapsed areas also we're going to have to shore up. So it's a little bit more damage than we thought, but we're actively addressing it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Joyce Adams.
Joyce Adams, 601 California Avenue. I came to the last council meeting to speak about public safety and the need for a complex. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I had seen some things on public media that fired me up. And the benefit of being my age is I've heard a lot of old sayings, and one of them is, don't go off half-cocked. And I did. And by the time I got here and Mr. Sturgeon read the overview of the problem and the history of trying to sell the Stevens Plantation North acreage, I realized that y'all had addressed it. It wasn't the way a lot of us wanted it, but you listened very carefully and started offering suggestions. But unfortunately, while 99% of us expressed our concerns rationally and reasonably, one lady chose to read aloud a social media post, not her words at that time, but it became a venomous personal attack on Mayor Blackwell. It was totally uncalled for. I was appalled, as were others in the group. And things have changed so much in these last 100 years. Some of us have been involved with battles with the city before, 48 years ago, when we marched on City Hall with our picket signs and our small children carrying them. That battle lasted 2.5 years. We fired the city manager. We recalled the mayor and 2 council people, and we did it legally. We had 2 attorneys helping us, pro bono. Every step of the way was done civilly and legally. And it's uncalled for to make it a personal attack, even though in the beginning, the mayor sat there with a big gun in the front of his pants, and a lot closer than y'all are now. And my husband kept saying, don't let him know who you are. Don't let him know where you live. You're going to get killed. But we did it civilly, and it is totally uncalled for not to be civil. And in this age of social media, whatever's on there, people believe. They shouldn't. Now that she got up and expressed it on the record and on television, she becomes liable for those words, even though they weren't hers initially. And several cases in the news lately where people have fought back and won. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a rare and refreshing comment. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Adams. That really means a lot, I know, to me and to the council members. Would anyone else like to speak during the Citizens Forum? I just want to make a clarification. When she talked about the mayor carrying a big gun in his pants, that wasn't me she was talking about. That was evidently 48 years ago. It must have been some tumultuous meetings, I can only imagine. This brings us to our consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. Mr. Manzares, I see your light.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item C to be, we can handle it separately. Would be great.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Why don't we deal first of all with item C now?
All right, thank you. Item C is resolution number 2020-012R. This is, as the city manager referred to, this is the approval of the contract with Cathcart Construction Company with regard to the Old Canoe Creek Road repair that was briefly talked about. The item that was in your agenda was done using a path that we felt would take a little longer, so staff worked, and with the information received from the Public Works Department, we've revised this item, so it requires a different approval than in your agenda packet. And with that, I'd ask the city clerk if she could read the revised resolution 2020-012R into the title into the records, and then we can explain what the difference is.
Madam Clerk?
Resolution number 2020-012R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, authorizing the utilization of the City of Orlando RFQU 17-0359, which is reasonable and otherwise in the best interest of the City of St. Cloud, whose subject matter is a citywide rapid response in minor projects and infrastructure and general grouting and repair and replacement of drainage wells, providing for the award thereof to Cathcart Construction Company, Florida, LLC, confirming the urgent requirement of the service and emergency procurement thereof, and an agreement executed by the city manager.
Thank you. So essentially, the changes, we move forward quickly as obviously it's a very serious situation, an emergency situation. So what we're asking you to do is not only approve this item with Cathcart, but also make the finding that this was an emergency that needed to be done and required repair. As was indicated, Cathcart Construction has already started working on it. They started working on it based on an interim approval by the city manager of the contract. So you also would be confirming that contract that has already been approved by the city manager. That's the action we're asking for today.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have comment and or
Motion to approve.
do we have a motion to approve from Councilmember Askew? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Cooper. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Then we go back to items A, B, D, and E on the consent agenda. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to any of these items? If not, we'll have discussion and or motion by council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from Councilmember Askew for the approval of the remaining items on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
It brings us to our public hearings. The next portion of tonight's meetings are the public hearings. We'll begin with item number 1. Madam Clerk?
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2019-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of PUD, planned unit development, compatible with existing commercial future land use designation for approximately 104.8 acres identified as Neptune Village, located south of Neptune Road and west of Old Canoe Creek Road, providing for entering the designation of the official zoning map, providing for the approval of the preliminary master plan, filing on the Planning Commission's recommendations, and proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Good evening, Andre Anderson, Community Development Director. As the clerk said, this is the final approval for the Neptune Village Plan Unit Development. Just by way of history, just to give you a little chronology of how we got here. This application was submitted to the city back in July of 2018, when we received the application for the PUD rezoning of this property, which is 104.8 acres. And during that time, from roughly around March of 2019 through October, we had formal DRC review of the application, going back and forth with the applicant multiple times to make revisions to the proposal. May of 2019, the Planning Commission reviewed this application and recommended approval to the City Council. And June of 2019, the City Council heard it for the first time and continued the item. Then it was continued to September, and again, the City Council continued that item. And then on October of 2019, we had the official first reading and motion to approve the project with conditions. And the four conditions that staff recommended was to remove the single-family detached component of this project, to identify a minimum density for the medium-density residential as well as the high-density residential units proposed in the project, to revise the plan to include more open space. This was due to incorrect calculation of the open space requirements, and to also provide an economic impact analysis for the project. The applicant has since made those changes and has in fact provided an economic analysis for the project. The project is currently zoned, or the property I should say, is currently zoned highway business, which allows a wide variety of uses. The proposed zoning is planned unit development, which allows for a mixture of uses. It is compatible with the surrounding area, and there are no adverse impacts to city facilities at this time. It is consistent with our strategic goal for growth management. And this next image shows a general layout of the preliminary master plan that shows the general location of the proposed uses on this property, which includes a medium-density residential and high-density residential to the west, and a village center and additional commercial uses to the north and east. There are approximately 232 townhome units proposed and 684 multifamily units for a total of 916 units. And there's also 408,600 square feet of non-residential uses. As the DRC recommends approval of ordinance 2019-11, and the Planning Commission at their meeting also recommends approval of ordinance 2019-11 for the PUD zoning and preliminary master plan. City Council requested action is to also approve the project. The applicant is here and may wish to speak.
Ms. Thacker?
Good evening, Joe Thacker, 515 Bryan Street, Kissimmee. What I'd like to just remind the council members is that this piece of property has been in the same ownership since the 1950s. It was in Orange Grove at the corner of Neptune and Canoe Creek. In 2017, the trees were cleared, and right now the property is vacant. As Mr. Anderson said, it is presently zoned. Well, the land use is commercial. Next to it is medium density land use as well, and commercial land use. The zoning is highway business. Those are some of the permitted uses that are allowed in the highway business category. What we're here today is to ask for a preliminary master plan approval in the zoning of the property to APD. There would be a second step involved with a final master plan that would have to come within 12 months of the approval of this preliminary master plan. After that, it would be necessary to also have a preliminary and final plat or a site plan approval. So this is just the first step in a process. The proposed zoning, the PUD, we have made pretty colors on the map to show that the commercial would be concentrated in the corners and along the main road through it. The village center, it would be either residential or commercial, a mixture. And what we have shown is the maximums that would be allowed between those two uses together. The high-density residential would be next to the village center, and then the medium-density residential would be next to the medium-density residential category in Anthem Park. And this is just a demonstration of what I've just said, and what those densities would allow and the number of units in the FAR. They would have a buffer along Neptune Road. This is just an example of what it could be. There is no design yet on what that would be. One of the conditions from the last meeting was the fiscal impact analysis that was prepared. This is just an overview of the results within that market study. Mr. McDonald is here tonight and able to answer any questions for you all if you have any from that actual study. As we presented at the last meeting, the Neptune Road widening project is moving forward with Osceola County, and we have shown on the PUD the designated future right-of-way for Neptune Road. A couple of other things that were requested at the last meeting. We did reach out to Anthem Park, the Community Development District, to talk about a future connection between this development and that development. They are not prepared to grant that at this time. They want to have more information. They want to understand the project better. But the communication has opened up and will continue. I think Councilmember Deputy Mayor Matheny's point that the connection is important as it will go to the light is something that this developer also agrees with as part of the future development of the project. The other thing was in reference to the school district. There is a meeting scheduled with the city and the school district and the developer and hopefully the county to all come together, look at the Neptune Road PD&E, the impact that might have on the bus access as well as the parent access, and see if there's anything that can be done to improve that. So those two things are also continuing. So I think that we addressed everything that came up at the last meeting, and the engineer, Ms. Hughes, is here today to answer any questions as well. So I will be quiet unless you all have any questions from me.
First of all, we'll receive some public comments, so if you'll stay close by.
Yes, sir.
Rocky Ellens, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
State your name and address.
Hi,
for the
Rocky
record.
Ellens, 1841 Remembrance. I live in Anthem Park, also part of the HOA there. Thank you, Council, for hearing me. One of the disturbing questions that's apparent to me is that we seem to build without having the infrastructure in place first. You know, it's kind of build and everything will come. And clearly, a two-lane road, Neptune Road, right through there, is insufficient, in my opinion, to handle the traffic of an additional 900-plus dwelling, plus the town centers, which is more potentially, you said individual homes? It's all commercial? It could be, okay. So just the high density and the medium density is 900 units.
Mayor, he
I need you
address
to,
the
I need you to
council.
speak to the council, and
sorry.
we'll have them address those questions for you, okay?
Thank you. So I would ask that issue be addressed, namely, not just the feasibility of the land usage, but also of the impact on the road system, the infrastructure. I guess I would also want to make sure that the police and the fire departments and all that gets, I'd like to know what the plan is to increase that as the population increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Thank you, sir. If you please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Kleiner, 4780 Cypress Forest Lane, St. Cloud. My concern is Old Canoe Creek, which is already at a point where it cannot handle the traffic. When you come off of the Florida Turnpike, you can be waiting on the Florida Turnpike for 10 minutes to get off because there's not enough room. Canoe Creek, Old Canoe Creek cannot handle more traffic, cannot handle what's there now. And one of the plans to make up for another 1,000 cars, which most likely will be heading down Old Canoe Creek to get onto the Florida Turnpike. And until that's addressed, there's no way in the world that it can possibly handle it. That's my comment.
Thank you. Will you please fill out a report so we can have a record? Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Rick Olio. I live at 2338 Kings Crest Road, just off of Neptune Road. And I would just like to reiterate what both of these gentlemen are talking about. A portion of Neptune Road was widened some years ago, and I don't understand why nothing's been done with the rest of it, considering the fact that they've built numerous subdivisions, if you will, with lots of houses, lots of cars, lots more traffic. Up there on the board says the widening project is moving forward. Is there a time frame? Is it going to be done before this village with X amount of people and traffic is going to be started and/or finished? And we may be the only few people talking here, but trust me when I tell you, there's a lot of people that have the same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe, ma'am, would you like to speak? You're taking notes, aren't you, Joe?
Linda Ellens, 1841 Remembrance Avenue. I live in Anthem Park, and I've just learned about the potential come through Anthem Park, and that would be an absolute nightmare. That Lexington Street is already busy, it's crowded, especially with the schools. The actual Anthem Park itself was approved for having narrow streets, which has been the bane of everyone's existence that lives there already, because there's not enough room to get through, there's not enough room for emergency vehicles, and I cannot see the people of Anthem Park, and I don't know who you've approached, but it's the first I've heard of it, and I've heard no one else talk about it that lives there. It will not be well received whatsoever. There is just no space, no room, too much traffic as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you make sure and fill out a form and give to the clerk, please? Are there any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I've already filled out one form. Do I have to do it again?
Yes, you do.
Oh, my. All right.
State your name and address for the record.
Dolores Roeder, Post Office Box 702105, St. Cloud, 34770.
Thank you.
And I understand what these people are talking about. I don't know why in the world, when you're building a highway, why do you stop with 2 lanes when you've got 4? Why don't you continue on? Years ago, before Walt Disney did Disney World, he brought all the heads of government, flew them to California, and he showed them all the roads that did not prepare for the influx of traffic. And then he showed them all the roads that did prepare for it. And he said, when you boys go back, when you build your I-4, make it 6 lanes. And they thought he was nuts. Now look at the mess we've got now. I don't know why in the world. You need to have more women, I think, on the road commission, because they have the broad picture. I mean, why make a little puddle when you can make a big river? And look at all these roads. I live off of Rambler, off of Pine Tree, and my golly, I can't even ride my horse down there now. It's worse than 192. It's just traffic and traffic. You build all these homes, and you don't prepare for the influx. You don't prepare for the infrastructure. And I don't know where people's thinking is coming from. They need to sit back and take a better look. Get people that can think ahead and not stay behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll go to discussion and our questions by council. Joe, would you like to answer some of those questions that were?
Mr. Mayor, I would. First of all, I'd like to remind everybody that the zoning that's already in place is highway business. So there could already be all of the commercial development on the 100 acres. So what's being presented is a plan to develop that in a fashion where there can be internal capture, there can be people that live there and either work there or go to restaurants there and things like that. So I think there will be internal capture that will happen, and not all of those people will have to go out onto Neptune Road or Canoe Creek. So this is a way to allow the 100 acres that already has entitlements of highway business to develop in a way that it's a properly planned mixed-use development. So I think that's important to keep in mind. It also, the fiscal analysis does show that it will benefit the city. And so I'd ask you to keep that in mind too. I understand the traffic concerns, and that's why I'm really happy that the county's moving forward with Neptune Road. It will be a 4-lane road. The PD is completed. They do have it funded. It's moving forward. So I think that from what I understand, it will be in place well before the impacts of this development will be felt in addition to what's there. So that's a good thing about the phasing and the scheduling of this development. So I just wanted to make those couple points. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion by council? Mr. Askew, saw your light first.
Ms. Thacker, can you come up again? A couple of questions. I think it comes down to some of this is timing. Neptune Road, are they adding another bridge onto Neptune Road as well, along with the widening of that road?
They will.
Okay, so, wow, a first development where we're actually widening the road before the development. In the commercial that they're planning on there, do they like restaurants, things like that?
That's part of the plan. There are no plans yet, but they will be marketing that. They are hopeful that there will be restaurants within there, especially along the area of the large pond open area. They would like to be able to have outdoor dining as an amenity in that large park area.
And well, last question. So one of the gentlemen here brought up about the turnpike. I've heard that that turnpike is going through a change itself along with the widening of Neptune Road, probably all at the same time. Do you have any insight to that?
I probably have less insight than others, but
Maybe the lady at the end down here?
correct. That the turnpike is moving forward with the plan for a different type of interchange at Nolte to take out the Kissimmee Park interchange, and it should be able to handle traffic better from what I have seen and heard. But again, I don't have all of those details.
Okay. It just seems like a lot of the folks that are coming up aren't hearing what's going on in the city, these changes with the turnpike, the widening of Neptune Road and the timing. So I was just trying to bring that back up so at least folks can understand our thoughts when we're trying to approve or disapprove these things.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Sturgeon?
Yes, Mayor, if I could have Mr. Anderson just to talk about the turnpike interchange and the schedule. He's been intimately involved in that.
Thank you. Andre Anderson's Community Development Director. The Turnpike Enterprise had two alternatives. One was the Kissimmee Park Road, which was the original plan, and they had an alternative number 2, which was at roughly by Nolte Road. And they selected the alternative number 2, which is Nolte Road, to be a diverging diamond interchange. So it takes up much less land and is more efficient in its layout and would actually handle the design trips that were anticipated at Kissimmee Park Road much better. They also have a second component to that project, which is an off-ramp at Friars Cove Road that goes north and south across the turnpike. In addition to that project, they're also including in the same schedule the north and south exits on 192, where we currently have a northbound exit on 192 from the turnpike. So they're also going to be dealing with that intersection by the St. Cloud Commons Shopping Center. The schedule that's anticipated is early 2020, they're going to have the public hearings regarding the PD&E. It should be completed by 2020, end of 2020, and then 2021 through 2022, they'll be doing their outreach for land acquisition and so on, and then they'll actually start construction 2024 through 2026. So we should see cars accessing that road in 2020 towards 2026. And it is a design build project, so they'll be designing it and moving on construction at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. Mr. Sturgeon, seems like, tell me a little bit about concurrency, why we did it 10 years ago, why not come back and do it now? Let's get the infrastructure, let's build it at the same time that we're gonna have the development. The developers should need to slow down a little bit, and let's get the roads at the same time. If you don't get the same time, then we hold you back a little bit. That's, the county and the city needs to work together, and I think we can do that. We just need to get this concurrency, we need to get these roads. You know, you've got, both of these roads are absolutely, they're swamped in the morning and in the evenings. They're full. You can't, these 2, 3, 4 gentlemen that's got up, they're telling the truth. They're not telling you something funny. It's absolutely 2 or 3 lights before you can get through there. And it's going to get more when you add these new homes here. So until you get concurrency where you can get these roads at the same time, I don't think we're going to need to be doing this. Can you tell me about that?
In point of fact, those are both county roads, and
I know it is.
the county has to agree to the concurrency. As far as the city, we have mobility fees. We passed that in 2017, and that took the place of concurrency. So if we have to have a concurrency, it's got to be with the county.
Okay.
Because I just want to reiterate to the public, those are both county roads. Those are, even though it impacts our city, they're both county roads.
I understand that.
And they would have to do the widening, like they're doing on Neptune.
Okay. Okay, on the side road there where it's Old Canoe Creek Road, that's only ingress, or is that ingress and egress?
Right in, right out.
So they're gonna have to come out and go down, they're gonna have to go down about a half a block and come back around? In other words, if you wanna go to Bronson Highway, you're gonna have to go down and come back around?
Or they can go out onto Neptune and either go down Sergeant Graham or to Neptune and Canoe Creek.
No, I'm talking about Canoe Creek Road. Old Canoe Creek Road.
Well, I think the only people that will take the ride out there will be the ones that want to go south on Canoe Creek. Because there's other ways to go north.
Until they get these new roads, it's gonna be absolutely boggle mind. This is gonna be really bad.
But this development is not going to happen all at once. And it will be, the Neptune Road should be finished at the same time as this development is gearing up. So, I mean, and they could go in right now and start putting, automobile sales in there now.
But Joe, I've already seen roads that they promised in times that they would have it done. It'll be done in 4 or 5 years, it'll be done in 3 years. And it's 6 and 7 and 8 years before it's done.
I understand, but the funding is in place, the PD&E has been approved, and the county has set a schedule.
Would this development slow down and let's get the roads at the same time? Would you agree that? Would they agree that?
Well, so the process, again, this is just the preliminary master plan.
That's not my
it's
question,
still-
was the question
But
to
I
you.
can't tell you what the schedule is because we have so many more steps and they don't, I can't tell you when it will start. But what I know is that Neptune Road is moving forward.
But you're not telling me that.
That's because I don't have that answer. That I don't know when the schedule will be for.
Do you have a
this
developer now,
development.
or?
I have an owner. I don't have a developer.
Okay.
Are you through?
I'm thinking. All right, go ahead, Mayor.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate the revisions that have been made since the first meeting. The additional open space, the additional buffering, the kind of rural type buffering along Neptune Road, allowing the right-of-way to be ready for Neptune Road widening to where, eminent domain or something doesn't have to happen and slow down the widening of Neptune Road. I really want you guys to work with the school district to make sure that we can get some connectivity between some of this development and Neptune Elementary, because these kids are gonna have to walk, and I'd hate for them to have to walk all the way down to Lexington and all the way around. I mean, it seems cumbersome to have to, walk in a manner like that.
They have promised pedestrian access no matter what.
Okay, perfect. And then there was a question that one of the gentlemen brought up about public safety and making sure that we're funding police and fire. We do have a public safety impact fee that does pay for, police cars, police officers, fire stations, all of those improvements that we have to make with every incremental development that happens. So we are collecting for those funds. One thing I want to bring up to hopefully staff and the developer, it's not with this project, it's with the property across the street that's adjacent to the police station. I hope that we can work something out. If the police department has to expand in the interim as we're working through the long-term plan, the 40, 50-year plan for public safety, if we can maybe buy a portion of the Battaglia property that's west of the police station, if we could work something out with that, if there's an opportunity to make a deal there. And then also, a couple weeks ago, the council did give direction to staff to work on a transportation impact analysis, to have all developments of size like this go through in-depth transportation analysis to make sure that any turn lanes, traffic lights, any of those kind of improvements that have to be made, get funded by some of these developments to make sure that those improvements do happen as we move forward. Because we can't do concurrency, that's kind of the next best thing to try to make sure that we get some of these improvements funded when the development happens. So I don't really have any questions for anyone. I just kind of want to point out some of those facts. Thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So first, for the record, I want to say I did have a conversation with Ms. Thacker today about this project. I want to ask the attorney, the city attorney, not Ms. Thacker. Okay, so currently and I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but I just want, again, to kind of talk about this. So if we left the existing zoning as is highway business, is there any way we could stop them from building commercial?
They are zoned and entitled to build commercial with whatever's in highway business. And I think you saw a slide that listed some of the potential uses, so they could move ahead and build that without any further approval.
Okay, so like the PUD that we're doing allows us to make additional clarifications and try to make the development better than, just straight zoning. That's our opportunity here. It's our bite at the apple. So I know when I was doing my agenda review and I saw the 4 bullets, I was sad that the comments that I made about the road networks didn't make it in the 4 bullets for some reason. But, the conditions that I had brought up the last time was to interconnect. I know Anthem doesn't like this idea, but I think it would be better for the circulation of the traffic. And, if you look at the downtown St. Cloud area, the reason why we can have a parade with 5,000 people and then the traffic is dissipated within 10 minutes of the parade being gone is because you have multiple routes that you can go, and you're not funneling everybody to one point. If you distribute the traffic, it does function better. But I wanted to look at a connection there down to, I think it's Lexington. And then the other comment I had made was that the school district had gated off Betsy Ross, which is a public right-of-way, and I didn't know how really they had the authority to do that. If they wanted to gate off access, they can do that potentially down by their school to keep whoever they're gating out. I don't know. But I know one of the plans that we had seen on the last version was Betsy Ross, I believe, turned through that pond site and came up and tied in a different configuration. So that is something I would like to see if we can vet this out further. I know it's not really the stage to do that, but those are the things that I would like to see. Another thing I would like to see in the final master plan is to come with development standards,
Because we've been doing that lately. Whenever development comes in, they'll come and show us pretty pictures, but then that really doesn't tie anything to the approvals. But if we put it into the approval, if we put the development standards in there, then we can elevate the architectural integrity of the site. And I believe the developer is willing to do that, because my concern is, what if he sells it? You know, they say, oh, he wants a good development and he wants this. I say, yeah, but he could sell it, and there's really no trace back to like what was already approved. So I wanted to do that. And then the last thing I wanted to know was, I drove Neptune on my way here to the meeting today. It was terrible. There was an accident in front of the Parton Triangle Park. I wasn't sure I was going to make it here actually for the meeting because the traffic was so bad. So I know what everybody's complaining about. Is the development going to donate the right-of-way that they have earmarked as proposed right-of-way on Neptune?
The developer is not in a position to be able to do that tonight for reasons because of ownership with other people. But what, and I think it might be a little bit premature, but what the developer has said is that he's willing to work with the county to have a conversation now with the county about possibly some creative approaches to it, so the county may not have to come out of pocket with all of the money. I mean, possibly mobility fee credits or some other type of credits for that. So I can't say that there will be a donation without any compensation, but definitely discussions can take place.
Didn't answer your question.
She did. They're not committing to it. But, you know, so that is one thing that can help expedite the construction of Neptune Road, is to, you know, get this piece of right-of-way as it comes in requesting the zoning change. That's something we did on other developments on Neptune Road, so that is something I'd like to consider. Sorry, I have kind of hodgepodge notes. I agree with Mr. Trace, and we had talked about that previously, that we definitely need to do traffic impact studies to make sure, you know, whatever turn lanes are needed are constructed. And, you know, I don't know that you could have a signal that close to Old Canoe Creek Road. I'm hoping not, because that one there is a disaster right now. That's where the temporary signal is.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
That's where I had the problem.
I also talked with Ms. Thacker, I believe it was today, and she answered some questions that I had. You know, the last thing that I would like to see happen to this property is for it to be developed under highway business. I can't imagine, you know, it's such an important piece of property that could have commercial development that has been master planned, especially. One of the things that we've been asking for as a council is for a quality mixed-use environment. And what I like about this, you know, they're working on a master plan for the proper development of this property, rather than just doing a hodgepodge of commercial developments up and down that highway that would create terrible traffic issues. And the fact that they have to come back with a final master plan, this is just a preliminary presentation. They have to come back for final approval of what they're proposing. You know, I certainly appreciate all the revisions they've made. Going from maximum density, you could have gone, but you went to minimum density, the open space, the expansion of the commercial, potential commercial non-residential centers and open space. And so, you know, you got to come back with this. You said within 12 months. Do we have any other questions from council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2019-11.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Askew. Madam Clerk?
Can,
One more.
Wait a second.
can we make some
I'll let
friendly
you-
amendments to that? So that none of the conditions we talked about, like adding the development standards In the,
I thought they had to follow the commercial building standards regardless.
I want them to have elevated building and design standards that they incorporate into their next submittal. I consider,
You don't like our commercial building standards?
I think it's a base. I think it's a base.
Then we need to fix the
Road
commercial-
connections, that they need to look into the road
Well,
connections.
The map shows all the road connections they have to do.
I would like it in the approval.
Well, the map is part of the approval. This is an exhibit to the,
So this is PUD. Do we want to add that to, isn't there a better spot to add this?
I think every spot is a good place.
10 acres, 10 acres. Okay.
there's,
And I would like them to look into donating the right of way on Neptune. Those are my friendly amendments. Otherwise, I'll make it competing.
Mr. Mazeris.
well, I'm just trying to figure out what we're really exactly, so, as Mr. Trace pointed out, this is Exhibit A, right, Andre, to the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the exhibit that will be incorporated into the preliminary plan, so the final plan would have to be consistent with that exhibit, or they'd have to come back and go through a whole. Okay, so I'm just talking about the
But
axis.
this plan doesn't show the road we were talking about where Betsy Ross curved through that pond and had better interconnection.
Right, so that's why that's kind of where I'm going with this. So if there's something that you want to see that's different than that's on this exhibit, that's what we want to talk about right now. And the issue with regard to the design standards, I'm not sure what you mean by elevated design standards. Do you want as part of the final master plan to be an approval of design standards to be incorporated in that?
Yes.
Okay, because as you indicated, the applicant said they're just a property owner, they don't have a developer that's gonna come forward yet and do this. I'm assuming that'll be at the time we get the final master plan. So at that point, you might be able to have a developer that can come in and say, this is what we're gonna do, this is what it's gonna look like, and then you could incorporate something into the final master plan. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, we have this conversation all the time where, oh yeah, we're gonna build a great development, and then I drive down 192 and see a metal building and like lose my mind and call the city manager and yell at him and what's going on. And I know we have our commercial building standards now, but I consider that the minimum.
Well, but my point is, they can't tell you what it's gonna look like.
I'm not
right?
asking for it to be in this. I'm saying when they come back with their final master plan.
Okay, I'm just going.
Yeah.
That's it, okay.
So that's fine. I think we need even playing field for everyone, and we need to either make our commercial building standards better if they're not adequate, or if the developer does want to do that out of the kindness of their heart, that's fine too.
Okay, I'll make a competing motion if you don't want to include it. That's fine.
Well, I think we need also to schedule a workshop to talk through the commercial building standards and beef them up if we need to.
Are you?
So you're okay with those, the Ms. Matheny's additions to your motion?
All right, so what are they again?
The road connection through, on Betsy Ross, they had realigned that road through the pond and had a better connection to the property, aligned connections better, perpendicular to Neptune Road. That was in the last package we had the last meeting.
And the school district is the one that removed that, wanted that removed?
Ms. Thacker?
Are you talking south of the property or north of the property?
Betsy
Neptune and
Ross,
But-
on the west of the west side of
Yes.
this. In one of your graphics, the last time it came, that road curved and went perpendicular into Neptune Road.
Okay, into Neptune. I didn't know if we were talking Neptune or down into
No, it
Anthem.
was-
Okay.
Yeah, it was the.
So the developer, the school district is the one that didn't like that, because we had talked about the buses and the parents having to still be separate, but the developer is happy to agree to a different Betsy Ross, and I don't think it's a Betsy Ross, but the most western connection to Neptune Road.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the north-south road on the west side of the property.
Correct.
Okay. I would like to say that's a public right-of-way, so.
Yeah, I don't know how
It's
it
good,
gets
it's
either.
good with the school
It's an
once.
unsafe intersection the way
Yeah,
Granville is anyway.
I mean, it's public right-of-way.
Okay.
So I had development standards when they come back for the final master plan. Look at the road connections, and I would like to see if they would donate the right-of-way along Neptune.
I'm fine with the first two. The third one's a taking in my mind. That's not.
Okay, competing.
All right, perfect.
I have no problem with getting the right-of-way. I'd like to get it now, but if you can't, then I'll
All right, make a competing motion then.
go for it.
That was it, I just said it. Do I
Okay,
need to
you're
re-say it
with
again?
all, including
Yeah.
the,
Mhm.
So
the
basically,
right-of-way.
you have an amendment to Mr. Trace's motion that would add those three items.
No, he's not accepting it.
Well, no, this is not a friendly amendment. So if you vote.
Right, I made it competing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll remove my motion and allow you to make a motion. Do you remove a second?
Okay.
Sure.
Let's start with
Okay.
that.
all right. So
Ray,
you
clear your mind.
accept the
I'll make a motion
All right.
to approve with 3 conditions. 1, they work on the road connections. That would be the ones that they have on their graphics. Then also look at realigning the westernmost road, the north-south road, and bringing it perpendicular into Neptune Road to make it a safer connection. To have elevated design standards in their final package, and to, when they come back for the master plan, to look into donating the right-of-way along Neptune Road. That would expedite the road construction and road widening of Neptune.
Okay, you're amenable to that. Everybody's agreeable?
And that's in addition to all the other conditions in the PUD.
Of course. Yes.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Athena, second from Councilmember Cooper. With those amendments, Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Hey,
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Nay?
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
May I ask a clarification?
We move forward to items.
Mayor, one second.
Yes.
Was the motion that was approved, the third item, was that we would get with the county before the final master plan to talk about donation of the property? I just want to make sure I understood
Yeah.
what the motion was. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Brings us to items number 2, 3, and 4, and if you'll also read item number 1 under council action into the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, before you do that, I'd like to have those read in the record, but I'd also like to have them continue to a date certain.
All three of them?
All 3 items plus the council action.
Okay, I know. You
And the
mean
date
all 3
certain.
items under public hearings and then 1 item under council?
Yes, and the date certain would be
Action.
February.
So that's 4 items.
Yes, and it would be February 13th.
All right, so how you can do this is, if you want, the clerk can read in items 2, 3, and 4, and then you can take one motion on those 3 items to continue the public hearing.
Continuance.
Item number 1, the preliminary subdivision plan actually doesn't even need a motion to continue it. But you
All
can't
right.
approve that until those other items are done. So it would naturally have to follow it, so.
If you'll read items 2, 3, and 4, please.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2019-46, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, to annex into the City of St. Cloud approximately 10.23 acres identified to preserve as lakeside, located north of 10th Street, east of Crossford Avenue, west of Old Hickory Tree Road, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Chapter 171.044 Florida statutes. Final public hearing for ordinance number 2019-47, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation change of low-density residential to approximately 10.23 acres identified as preserve at Lakeside, located north of 10th Street, east of Crawford Avenue, west of Old Hickory Tree Road, providing for amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing the Planning Commission's recommendations, proof of publication, applicability and effect, severability copies on file and effective date. Final public hearing for ordinance number 2019-48, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of PUD, Plan Unit Development compatible with existing low-density residential, future land use designation change for approximately 10.23 acres identified as preserve at Lakeside, located north of 10th Street, east of Crawford Avenue, west of Old Hickory Tree Road, providing for entering the designation of the official zoning map, following the Planning Commission's recommendations, and proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Say this, yeah, and a motion.
Did you need a motion to
Do we
continue?
have a motion for continuance to February 13th?
Motion to
These three
approve.
items?
Second.
Motion to continue.
We have a motion for Councilmember Trace
No.
or
Askew.
Askew?
That was to
I
continue.
heard some
right?
noise there. Councilmember Askew, second from Councilmember Cooper for continuance to February 13th. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 5.
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2020-08, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending the Land Development Code of the City of St. Cloud, Florida to amend Table 3-7, Commercial Industrial Uses, in Article 2, Definitions, Article 2, Division 19, Sign Regulations, Article 3, Division 20, Section 20, Temporary or Mobile Vendors, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and effective date.
Andre Anderson, Planning and Zoning Director. This LEC update is to make some changes to our code to clarify and simplify some uses in our definition section, and also revises and clarifies some provisions in our sign code, specifically related to strip lighting as well as the electronic variable message signage. It also adds a provision allowing for mobile food vendor regulations. I'll just go through each one very quickly. Article 2, our definition section, now broadens the definition for micro beverage manufacturing to include, to expand the list. Right now we have it, we indicate specific types of micro manufacturing facilities such as micro brewery and micro winery, but there are also many other types such as dealing with wine and spirits, mead, and cider. And by the way, I didn't know what mead was, and I found that it's honey that's fermented with water.
Have you seen the commercial?
Yeah, I learned that just now. So that expands the list to kind of include a wider range of micro manufacturing establishments. We also added a definition related to mobile food vendor, which I'll discuss in a little more detail at the end, but basically it defines it as a readily movable motorized wheeled vehicle or towed vehicle designed and equipped to serve food. And then we also clarified our definition regarding window sign. The change there was really adding the word frame, because before it was only dealing with signage on the glass, and so on. It expanded to also add that it would be signage also included on the frame as well. Division 19, sign regulations, we made some clarifications there regarding incandescent tubing and LED light strips. These are instances where it's permissible. There was a question as to whether we'd want to have these, what was described previously as chasing lights and these strips around display windows. And so if the incandescent tubing on our LED strips are integral and decorative or architectural feature, then it would be permitted. Or if it's not connected to the actual signage, and if it is an instance where it's like an antique filament style or temporary holiday lights. So those are the instances where that would be permissible. Other instances would not be permitted. As far as non-conforming signs, we wanted to address which lights were prohibited, and that after the adoption of this ordinance, the second reading, that they would be allowed to remain for a period of up to 90 days, but after 90-day notice period, all the non-conforming lighting must be removed. So that's basically the amortization period for the non-conforming lighting. Division 19 continued related to electronic variable messaging. This is an item where we want to update the operational standards and the brightness requirements. and include a provision that says if you have these electronic variable messaging signs, that you have to have some kind of ambient light sensor that would be able to adjust to no more than 0.3 foot candles above the ambient light levels in the area. And then there's also a provision for a sliding scale for light measurements based on the size of the sign, and it's in the ordinance, 0 to 100, 100 to 250, 250 and greater. Division 20 talks primarily about the temporary and mobile vendors, and this is updating Table 3-7, which is the commercial and industrial uses table, and it's proposed to allow mobile food vendors as a conditional use in the CBD1 and CBD2 zoning districts. These are the districts associated with the downtown area. It will require that the mobile food vendor be an accessory use to the primary use on the property. It will require a mini site plan in order to identify the location of the mobile food vendor on the site. It's not permitted on vacant property. As I said, it has to be an accessory use to a primary use on the property. It must be entirely on private property, and it is not to be visible from any named public right-of-way. It can be adjacent to private property and be, for instance, along an alleyway, for instance, but there's no requirement for screening from an alleyway because that's not a named public right-of-way. There's no additional signage that's allowed for the mobile food vendor or for the primary use on that property, and it must meet all the licensing requirements of the fire department for the inspections, as well as from the state for their food licensing, and also any other governmental agency requirements. And there will be an annual permit that will be required for this use. And we've determined that it is consistent with our growth management strategic plan goals, and the DRC recommend approval of ordinance 2020-08. The Planning Commission at their meeting reviewed it and also made a recommendation of approval. They had some clarification questions that they asked, but they did recommend approval of the ordinance. This is the first reading. We have forwarded it to the chamber because you've asked for us to have the chamber comment, so we're still pending their comments at this time.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll entertain discussion and/or motion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. You know, I got a comment on
I
the
knew
sign
you were gonna
ordinance
have
and
to.
lighting ordinances.
I knew you were going to do it.
So I know the answer to this question, but I just want to ask you, we did coordinate these changes with our code enforcement staff and had them review it so that, because I know the last time there was some issues enforcing, so I just want to make sure we included them. So a couple things I was concerned about is, the first is about the vehicle signs. So I know we have had a couple instances in the county and the city that I know of where a business won't be able to put more signage out, and so they just crazily decorate cars and, you know, do all kinds of crazy things with it and just park it and move it around, you know, and.
Or a trailer.
Yeah, or a trailer.
I got pictures to show you.
Now, this specifically says you have to be able to drive it. It says that in our ordinance, but, you know, like, is there anything that would prevent that from happening? Like, I know of a business on 192, it's in Osceola County though, but they kept getting busted for their sign, so what they did is just did this really tacky vehicle and parked it up right by the road and had a big arrow painted on the side of it and pointed back at their restaurant and got around the sign ordinance. Like, if somebody tried to do that, would we be able to enforce anything on that? I mean, is there some language we need to add?
Right off the top.
I mean, as long as they drive it around and move it every day, like, can you even say anything to them?
Well, we can say something. It's just hard to enforce it because they're constantly moving. However, our code does not allow for, you know, off-site signage. It has to be signage either part of the shopping center or signage on the building. And so by putting signage on a vehicle and moving it around, you're essentially trying to circumvent the requirements because a shopping center is limited to so much signage.
I know. So
And
can we enforce
our
it? That's
code
my
currently
question.
our code currently allows for saying that if you put a sign on your car, it doesn't make it inoperable. So in other words, it has to be a moving vehicle that can move around.
Sure.
'Cause like,
These were like
realtors,
just
whatever.
painted. They
I
just painted
understand.
it crazy and painted arrows on it, and then it's not off-site. It's in the parking lot of the business.
Right.
So I
So,
just don't want to see that game starting.
yeah,
to-
I mean, we will definitely look at our code to make sure that if there's a loophole there, that we'll try to tighten it up. Also understand that when we do cite for any kind of code violation, it goes to the property owner. And so if the shopping center, for instance, is being cited, they're going to be concerned and will probably talk with their tenant, to address the issue.
Okay, I'd just like to take a look at that closely and see if, we get into that game. We have, because I know we've had that in the city too, like where people try to work around the code. So I had that. The second concern I had was about,
Can you give me a second, Mr. Mayor, do you need to address something that's already been
Well, I
talked about?
just wanted to talk about that enforcement issue. Thank you, Mayor, with regard to that. You're right, and I think the language that we're trying to propose is trying to give better clarification for those individuals who have these vehicle-type signs that are affiliated with their business. It's not the city's intention to address somebody who has a sign on a truck or something that they're using in their everyday business. Where we've had a great amount of success with here in St. Cloud and other jurisdictions that we work in, is there is at some point when the vehicle is no longer being used as a vehicle and now it has become additional signage. And from a code enforcement perspective, it's a pretty, we've had good success, I should say, demonstrating that this isn't a vehicle anymore. It is now being used as a sign. So the idea here is that it's not going to impact our ability to enforce the sign code. I think the idea here is to give better guidance to folks about what you can and can't do with your sign, your vehicle that has a sign on it, and you have a better understanding of it. So I'm not worried about the enforcement piece of this, because usually folks that are not using their sign, they're using their vehicle as a regular work vehicle and they're using it as a sign, are doing enough where we can basically say, no, this isn't a vehicle anymore, this is a sign, and we've been able to convince the special magistrate that that's the case.
perfect. I just want to make sure we got enough, since we're changing it, we got enough in there. The second concern I had was about the brightness of the sign and the proximity that the measurement happens. I don't really understand the logic behind the bigger the sign is, the further away you get to measure the brightness. Because if you're right next to them, I just don't understand the logic of the bigger your sign is, the further away you do the measurement.
But like that 250 square feet, that's a billboard.
Yeah.
So, I don't.
But still, I
figured
mean,
that
like,
came
why you can have a bigger sign and we'll measure it further away so it's brighter than it is. Like I just don't know, I don't know how other jurisdictions do it. That seems odd to me, that it should be the brightness is the brightness, whether it's this big or that big. As you're driving down the road and then you're on a dark road, like a couple of our signs are, I won't name them. It's blinding. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it actually gets worse the closer I get to it. Because then you kind of lose the road as you're driving. So that language I would like to.
So would you like to suggest that the measurement be at the property line?
That was one of the suggestions I had in my agenda review, was maybe do it at the property line, or the closest property line. Do you do it?
We can go back and
Just take a look at
offer
that
some
language,
solutions
because
as to-
I think that's odd. And that's it. And then I just wanted to, I know Mr. Estill doesn't want to come up, but could I ask him to come up for a second? Would you be willing to walk up?
It's up to the mayor.
Fine, yes, please.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he runs the meeting.
Oh.
When
You
he's
have my
gone, you
permission.
run the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Richard Estel, 1031 Chamberlain Trail, St. Cloud, Florida, 34772.
I just
Apologize, I'm a little hoarse tonight.
I know that we've been working through some challenges with the food trucks, and I just want to do you see any issues with how we drafted the language? I feel like this language is kind of like checks all the boxes that the council had in mind.
I agree, and it is absolutely in line with what I initially felt was appropriate.
Okay.
I know there was some conversation about doing it another way, but I think this is the best way. It reads well. I think it will preserve the integrity of the image that we're trying to uphold, but allow for some additional venues as well.
Okay, great. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I agree with all of Deputy Mayor Martini's comments. On the micro beverage and mobile food vendor, I appreciate that these will help bring this entertainment district we're trying to do downtown to light. I didn't see, Dave, I figured you would have commented on this, but I didn't see your light on.
It's coming.
Okay. So I think it's great. We still provide public safety with this and all the inspections and everything we need to do, but then also bring additional business opportunities. So I think it's great.
Councilmember Askew.
So actually, I don't really have too much of a problem with the mobile vendors, and I know why we're doing this. Here's the challenge I have with it, though. It's a conditional use, and when we run into conditional uses, sometimes once the conditional use is done, it never comes back up here ever again. And then we can run into some problems with it. I mean, eventually we can pull the conditional use back. What I would propose, if we're having food vendors and we want them in a location, food vending really, if you ask any food vendor, their idea is that they want a restaurant eventually. They're starting here. I think it as an incubator. I took that advice from somebody that was a lot smarter than I was. And you really I want to help these businesses grow and succeed. But basically, we're writing an ordinance here that you can have a mobile vendor forever.
I thought it was annual.
It's annual conditional use that will eventually go back to staff every year. I'm like, okay, check, and it'll constantly go through. I would propose that if we want to go forward with this food vendor, that they have 1 year, and at 9 months in that 1 year, they come back and say, how are we going to make this permanent? We're going to connect to this or that, and they start working on that, and at their 1 year, everything's done. It becomes a permanent piece of the facility. They start paying taxes, just like other restaurants down here, and they have a bathroom, and all those things come along with it. So I would propose that I like the ordinance the way it's written, but at that 1 year, I think that they should be looking to make this piece permanent. You're going to put a kitchen in, or you're going to move the truck, or you're going to make the truck permanent. Being an owner of a lot of land in the downtown, next thing you know, this right here, I can put a ton of food vendors on some large parking lots that I have in the downtown. So I like the idea of the food vendors. I just think there should be some time limit on it. It should become permanent eventually. Just like a restaurant has to pay taxes and impact fees and things like that, and they pay taxes back to the city of St. Cloud. And I think some of the food vendors too also, and I'm not looking just at the garage bar, I'm thinking down the road when somebody else has a little piece of property behind their place, that they should be licensed in the city of St. Cloud. They should be paying taxes to the city of St. Cloud, just like the other restaurants and other businesses that are in the downtown. So I think there should be some time limit. That's basically what I'm saying.
Mr. Manzara.
And just remind you, what this is doing is establishing the conditional use process. It's setting forth certain requirements that would have to be in the conditional use or be addressed as part of it. But a conditional use permit is exactly that. It's a permit. So when a particular application comes back in front of you, you absolutely at any time would have the right to put an expiration on it. You say, well, it's good for a year, it's good for 2 years, whatever you feel. Similarly, if one lot comes forward and they want to put 20 of these on it, you can come and say, no, you can't put that many on it. It's a conditional use permit. It is supposed to be site-specific based on what they want to do and the area around it. So I would caution you against setting a time frame to put in the ordinance, because there might be an option that you might want a year might be too short, 2 years might be enough, and you would look at each particular thing. We could add in the ordinance that some language in there that any conditional use permit will have an established time frame, and the council could address it at the time the application comes in front of it.
Mr. Manzares, just to clarify, right now, the proposal is to have an annual permit, so it's only good for a year.
Well, that's not how it reads, though, and I agree with
Right.
Mr. Askew on it.
It's just gonna go back to, you're gonna get your
What it
50
basically,
bucks.
what
and-
I've always read that to mean is that every year you have to come back in and get your permit renewed.
But it doesn't have to go to the council, it just
Well,
goes to
then,
staff.
then we'll need to, if that's what's intended, then we need to clean up that language, because I agree with Councilmember Askew. I don't think it necessarily reads that clear. And that's not how I read it, actually.
No, and I think it's not, it's a beautiful thing that the garage bar has. There's holes in this thing that, the next thing you know, they're gonna start popping up and.
Well, but that's my point, Mr. Askew,
Right.
because as a conditional use permit, you will have the ability to address the holes on each particular instance.
Correct.
So you will always have, when the CUP gets approved, you will have the ability to say, no, we don't want you to do what happened over here, or something like that. And you'll be able to address those as they come up. That's the good thing of a conditional use permit, because it's able to be a lot more flexible now based on the experience you have. And if
So-
you put a time frame on it, then everybody's got to go through the chain.
If it's okay, Mayor, we've run into some challenges with conditional uses in the downtown where businesses are there that probably shouldn't be there, but we've kind of gave them a conditional use that they never come back up in front of us. So.
Well, but that's why you're talking about, but we agree with you. I think the time frame is, and I think staff's proposal is that there be a time frame in it. We just need to clean up the language to make sure that that's clearly what's said.
Okay.
I think that's what Mr. Anderson is saying. It's intended to be a one-year life of the permit.
Councilmember Cooper?
Thank you. Okay, I want to go back to the trucks, vehicles, and parking in front of their businesses. Mr. Sturgeon, tell me the problem Mr. Barber has had parking his vehicle in front. Now, if it's okay for some of the other ones, it's a business, they use it, day-to-day operation, he parks it there, goes in and he's got a business inside, and then he comes back out, and he's got his truck and trailer, whatever, and it is commercial. Is that allowed or not?
No, that's against the land development code.
Okay. Then we've got the other 2 or 3 pictures that I showed you, that those are,
And there's active cases on several of those, and the other one, the guy keeps moving the truck every day. It's a drivable truck. The one you showed me in front of the
big one?
McDonald's, yes, sir.
so that would be legal to, I mean, he's parking it right on.
Not according to
It's
what
not
Dan
legal,
just said.
but it's extremely difficult when an individual has a vehicle like that and is moving it onto other people's property and parking it in other parking lots. I will agree with everybody. That is a difficult enforcement situation. Typically, what you have is you have individuals who set up a sign right near their shop, as Councilwoman Matheny pointed out, sometimes with a big arrow on it saying, "Come buy your gold here," or "Sell your gold here," and that kind of stuff.
So
So
they've got a sign up and a big, humongous truck.
I know that, but he moves it all around to different locations, as I understand it.
No, pretty much, that one, pretty much just, I think it's right there in that front.
Well, we certainly will look at it and.
And they have, code enforcement is.
Yeah.
You got that
We-
on that one?
yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Any other discussion from council?
We're gonna try to clean up that language a little bit on that?
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Councilmember Askew. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Cooper. And you're going to clean up the language. Madam Clerk?
Are my comments in there too?
Yes.
You want me to put them in there?
I hope so.
I don't like.
You want
So
to
are
cut the
they-
lights, you want to dim the lights down.
Well, he was gonna look at the
We're gonna work on that
Gonna
whole
work on that
section.
language, and then
Okay.
okay.
First reading.
Are you happy? Thank you.
When she sees the final rating, she'll be happy, I guess.
Your
Madam-
comment was about
Madam
the
Clerk.
sliding scale.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to council action, item number 2.
Update on Tractor Supply Farmers Market.
There we go. Veronica.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. At the last City Council meeting, we discussed the farmers market at the Tractor Supply and the code enforcement action that had recently occurred. Abismael Hernandez, our business navigator, and myself met with two of the vendors on January 15th, and we discussed what was needed in order to help them start the farmers market as soon as possible, and also what to do to make it a long-term use for them. We discussed the need for an owner's authorization to allow them to have the 90-day permit, which the intention is that during that 90-day time period, Abismael and myself would help them through the conditional use process, and we would help them with preparing their application. We showed them an example of another conditional use that showed the types of items that are needed to answer the questions in order to have approval from the City Council. We discussed that the city manager is going to waive the application fee, and we discussed site options for them. We felt it was a very positive meeting, and again, I spoke to them today with two other vendors, and we reviewed what's needed, the necessary requirements, the owner's authorization in order to get that temporary 90-day permit, and they implied that they're expecting a authorization from the Tractor Supply. I think we were expecting it today, so I would hope that that means we're going to get it tomorrow. And you know, we want to have them open back up on Saturday. So I've offered to talk to the Tractor Supply with them if needed. I've offered to talk to the landowner also if needed. And we're committed to working with them moving forward. And we hope to not have an update until we're standing in front of you with a conditional use.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item?
Good evening. My name is Debbie Brock. I live at 4498 Hunting Lodge Drive, St. Cloud, Florida, 34772. We weren't able to make the meeting on Wednesday. My husband was in the hospital having surgery. So Linda from Soap Cloud, she went, and Bobby from 3Bs went. The problem is we've been there for 4 years straight. We were up in front of council 18 months ago. Council then said there was no problem with us vending. Then all of a sudden we get shut down. I did speak to Tractor Supply corporate office on Wednesday of last week. The gentleman, Mark, who's the manager at Tractor Supply, is out sick for, unfortunately, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. He was in an accident. I've got a hold of somebody at Tractor Supply, the assistant. She sent an email today to the district manager. I'm just waiting back for the letter from him. You know, if I don't get it this weekend, my vegetables are going bad out in the garden. You know, I'm not making a mortgage payment with it. You know, when I put it on Facebook last week, I've received 15 calls within a matter of a half hour. Facebook is blowing up. I get people calling me every day. When are we coming back? When are we coming back? You know, we're not doing nothing wrong. I just don't understand after 4 years why this is happening. And I am working to get the letter, but unfortunately my vegetables are going bad.
You have anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item?
Yeah, I wrote it down.
State your name and address for the record again.
Dolores Roeder, St. Cloud, Florida, Post Office Box 702105. I've been going to Tractor Supply ever since it opened. I love that little store. And I know some of those vendors, and it's nice to go there. You know, sometimes it's tough to make a living and when you're retired and things. And I think it's a shame that people can't go out, they got the property, they're able to do it. And why? So damn many regulations. I swanny. Regulation, and they can't sit and sell some of their wares. That's a shame. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. I did reach out and I talked to Mr. Schofield, Wayne Schofield. I made a phone call to him. talked to him. He was out in the Mediterranean, and he contacted me back, and he said, Mr. Cooper, I don't have any problem. If you would talk to Alicia over there in Kissimmee, his secretary, he had no problem to work with you as long as you have insurance. And the only other time would be the 4th of July, and I think it was Christmas time, in the front there, beside, close to, what is it, the west side of, what's the food vendor right there? Oh,
Wendy's.
hamburger, where they have the hamburgers there.
Wendy's.
Wendy's, thank you, Wendy's. On the west side there, you could have it right there if you talk to Alicia over in Kissimmee, Mr. Schofield. So I contacted him, and he had no problem as long as you have the insurance. So there's an inroad right there. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. That's actually one of the comments I was going to make. When I had my briefing with city staff Tuesday, that had already been worked on by Ms. Miller and had already emailed and had emails back from Mr. Schofield and Alicia, because I said, who's Alicia? That was a possibility. And I believe that was also presented in the meeting that the city had with, is it Linda? I'm sorry. Linda and 3Bs. And so, I mean, if they're not able to get, that was kind of the thing I was going to make. I know that you had done a lot of that legwork earlier in the week, that would they be able to move up? I thought Mr. Schofield's piece was actually a better piece because it's more visible up by 192. Personally, I was like, oh, that's a better fix anyways. So I don't know, would they be able to go there this Saturday? I don't know if they have the insurance worked out.
I spoke to Alicia today also, and she also was willing to talk to one of the vendors if they were interested. However, I spoke to Linda earlier today, and she informed me that they have chosen to stay on the Tractor Supply property, that she described several of the concerns with moving to the front property, for instance, wind due to 192, potentially causing conflict with their tents and their tables. She actually had some great reasonings that I'm sure if you invited her up, she could describe those, but they've chosen to pursue with the Tractor Supply, and so I expressed whatever they choose, I'm going to help them.
Sure.
Oh,
If they choose the Schofield property, I'm going to help them. They choose to stay on the Foothill property, I'm going to help them with that also.
Well, thank you for all your hard work on it, because I know you've been hustling on it all week. So I know I turned my light off, but I'm going to keep going. Energizer Bunny over here. So is there any way, I mean, I understand their point. You know, they did come before council, and we said it was okay. And then, you know, a couple weeks ago, I got a call on a Saturday from Mr. Crisp, like, you know, we're shut down, what's going on, you know? And I was like, I don't know. Like, you know, it was kind of news to me. And I know when I talked to Mr. Sturgeon, it's kind of, we haven't discussed this so much, but I know you had said initially that you needed the property owner, and then I think you were okay with the manager. Is there any way that we could make a phone call and get a verbal while we're waiting on the letter to let, you know, tomorrow, is there a way we could try to help with that? Like, just to, I don't know, just trying to find
I'll accept an email
solutions.
with a letter on the way.
Yeah, but I don't know if you're gonna,
I believe, and Miss Linda can come tell you if she'd like to come forward. I believe that they're expecting a letter from corporate rather than from the actual general manager. As she stated, their normal manager's out for a time period.
so like the Tractor Supply here in St. Cloud doesn't have someone who's filling in for the manager?
You would think.
I mean, there's not like an assistant manager that can send an email? I just think the likelihood of corporate doing anything on a timely one-day turnaround, I don't think that's.
They have an assistant that's filling in from work. We went and we talked to her today, and like I said, she did email them, and we're just waiting for it back.
But she
Now-
could email the city and say it's okay.
Okay, we can do that.
That's what they're saying, so.
That will work.
You know, and if worse it happens is, if we have to do Schofield, I'd like to get the information on what I would need. You know, like I said, I don't want to be stuck with everything in the garden. And not just that, it's the people that really count on us. It's just totally unbelievable how many people come. A lot of them don't even buy stuff, but they come and talk to us. You know, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So, yeah, so if the assistant store manager will send an email, that will work. Just send
Okay.
it directly to the city.
Okay, I will do that.
So I think maybe you can get you
cranked up for Saturday.
Get you cranked up for Saturday, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Mr. Cooper's gonna come and go shopping.
Oh, I've already been there Saturday.
He's been there.
As a matter of fact, I bought some stuff
Yeah.
Saturday. I was there.
It'll work as a temporary solution.
Absolutely,
This is
thank you.
It's a difficult situation for the city to be in. I'm compelled to tell you that. You know, a temporary situation, an email from a property owner saying, or a person in control of the property saying it's okay for they be there. There's risk to the city in this. And hopefully nothing
But
bad
they've been doing it for a year or
Not
two
with
here.
permission of the city, though.
I understand.
This is adding permission of the city into the equation. That's the risk.
I think for one Saturday, we could let them, as long as we get something like that, I would think it'd be all right.
Any objections? No?
All right.
Awesome.
Mr. Manzares.
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Sturgeon.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have two items. First off, you'll see in front of you, you have a T-shirt about the census coming up, and I was going to ask that the council would graciously wear these at the February 13th meeting. If we don't have the right size, we'll definitely get that for you. We need to support our census. We need to be counted this year in the census. That's to do with our districting for congressional and federal funding, so it's very important we do that. The second thing is, as I sat here and listened to the deliberations at the last meeting on the DSD property, as you know, the city pays those taxes every year, and they're several years in arrears. And I thought it would be beneficial, and we've been working really hard at building up our reserves, is to come forward with the budget amendment in March and go ahead and pay the taxes up to date for the last 3 years. I think that'd be prudent. I heard the citizenry talk about we pay our taxes every year. And it was a strategy that was put in place many years ago by a previous city manager and finance director when the city was struggling financially. I think it'd be beneficial to do that because I have no idea when we're going to be able to sell that property. I think it's the right thing and prudent thing to do for the city to pay up those taxes.
I don't.
Councilman Raskin.
That's very good of us to do that, but that's money we will not get back. We will not see that ever again. And I've tried this with Mr. Manzares, I don't know, a bunch of times. Can we write it in as a lien to when we go to sell the property? And I don't think we can. So if it's $500,000, which I think is probably around there,
600.
then that'll be $500,000 the city does not see back, and we've already spent probably $13 million on that.
At least.
So it's a great thing, makes us look like we're paying our taxes, but I think that if we sold that for 10 million or we sold it for 1 million, nothing comes back to the city, other than we get to develop, or somebody gets to develop that property. So that's sort of my 2 cents on it.
Councilman Trace.
I think we should pay the tax bill and move forward. This just goes to show we should, city and government should not be developers in this. Leave that to the folks that do that. But I think we should pay our taxes.
Councilman Matheny.
I agree with Mr. Askew. I mean, the reason we've been doing that is so that we don't have to pay all the money out of the taxpayer coffers, and that when we sell the property, those debts are covered at that time. So I don't know if you need us to raise our hands, but I'm on the no team.
That's a no here, too.
Well, just for right now, it's going to be the city manager's call as to how he wants to proceed on it. But as I understand it, the $290,000 that's owed for the oldest tax year, that was already in the past budget?
It's already in the budget, that's
Okay.
correct.
So you
Yeah,
couldn't do
you pay-
anything, you
yeah.
couldn't do anything for the rest of that money. You'd have to bring a budget amendment back. So based on the discussion tonight, the city manager can decide whether he wants to bring another budget amendment back in front of this city council to decide on the balance of the taxes.
I don't think so. They said no.
Okay.
It's a no
But
for
the
me.
290,000, based on the fact that it is.
We have to pay that.
Completely unlikely that that property is gonna close
Right.
by that's gonna have to be paid.
That's fine.
Probably should be paid sooner or later because it'll reduce the cost.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Ms. Clausen. Mayor, may I have Ms. Clausen speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. I just want to clarify something that was mentioned for the record. Taxpayers' money do not pay these taxes. It is the St. Cloud OUC interlocal agreement, and we save it monthly on a stipend. So we don't have those dollars available. We can use reserves, but there's a misconception that tax dollars from the residents are used to pay this. That's incorrect for the taxes. So, excuse me. Just kind of want to clarify that for the record, and we won't get that money back. So thank you for mentioning that, but just want to clarify that, where the money's coming from. It's a strategy that was in place actually from a budget that we decided, where to get the money, so we funnel it from the monthly stipend we get from the OUC contract. So just making everybody aware of that.
Oh, don't sit down.
Mr. Eskew.
Thank you, Mayor. So if we don't use that money, we can use that money elsewhere in the city for probably economic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Repeat that, sir.
So I'm just hypothetically, if we paid the taxes on it, we won't have that money. But if we don't pay the tax on it, that money's still going to be ours that we can use for something else.
Yes.
It could be.
Okay.
But, be aware of some of the reservations we have and the reasons we have them for and their specific purposes. We can't just go out and use that, right? And you guys know that better than I do, right? So I just kind of wanted to put the rules in place as to why there's a method, why we're doing it. And I wanted to tell you the strategy behind the scenes that we are doing. That is not something that it's to correct this action and survive.
Right.
It's not because we're in any money strain, but that's the strategy we've deployed. But it continuously keeps being said about residents. And I just want to be very clear about the taxes and the strategy we've deployed to be funded correctly.
Yeah, we're not the one that got into this tax game, but we're the ones trying to deal with it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
Anything else?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I would still argue it's taxpayer dollars because the taxpayers are paying the OUC bill that gives us the intergovernmental transfer but whatever. So, I just wanted to announce 2 events. I don't know if the mayor is going to say them, but I'm excited about them. I've lived in St. Cloud for a very long time. I won't say how long. But I'm excited to see the events coming into the community, and I just want everybody to participate so that we make sure that they keep coming around. And the one is the city is doing the culinary bike tour, which I'm really excited about. That is February 1st. You can find the information online, but you'll be able to, you can rent a bike if you don't have one. You bring your own bike, and then you're going to be able to go around to all the restaurants in downtown and have samplings at them. I'm pretty excited about that. And then also the chamber is having a scavenger hunt. So you create a team of 4. It's $50 to enter, and then you go around. I guess there's going to be a bunch of clues that you go around and try to solve and take pictures and hashtag. And I think you're going to be advertising the businesses and bringing traffic to them and doing all that. So I'm pretty excited about that. We have a team name. Unfortunately, I let my friend be in control of the team name, and we are Team Cat People.
Team what?
I said, come up with a cute name, and that's what I was like.
People?
Team Cat People. So I guess we're going to have to wear ears or something. But that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. You tell us, Pennsylvania Avenue, what are we doing?
So we just, actually, we'll
We'll be
be,
putting everything-
right, we're signing the task authorization tomorrow for Osceola Engineering to begin the design work. Excuse me. And as you know, we got an appropriation from the state, so we've had to go through all kinds of state hoops and insurance requirements that are above what we require, so it's taken time through the holidays to get that doing. But Mr. Moody should have that Monday and start work on the preliminary plans. You'll have 30% plans by the end of February and 100% plans by October is what he's projecting. So we can start, put it out to bid at the end of the fiscal year.
We need to wait for the whole entire, everything from Moody?
Yes, sir, we'll have to have those plans in place. And then once we have those, as I told you the other day, we'll provide the council with copies of the plans, we'll review that with everybody, and then move forward with the bid process.
Okay, so it's going to take him another couple of months at least.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That'll be, okay. And where's our music at?
Well, like I told you, we had to go back out and look for a new system because the system, the Wi-Fi was on the
Are we
same.
looking, or what are we?
Yep, we're looking. So we're gonna have to run wire now, which we did put the chases in, so we were able to do that. We went out, looking at a new system. Because I told you the
Did
Wi-Fi
you bring
is on.
something back to the next meeting and tell us, have something lined up or do something? I mean, this has been
Can I-
going on. We've been asking, I think, Matheny, Miss Matheny, I think's asked,
Well, like I said, we had a system spec'd out and then found out it was on the same channel as our water meters, so we had to go jump back and punt on that.
well, there ought to be something somewhere.
So
out there.
can I make a commitment to the end of February, we'll have something back, or it's probably gonna be under my authority to go ahead and purchase it.
All right, I just wrote that down.
All right,
so
all right,
I won't forget you.
all right.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Askew.
Is there a way you can give us, what's going on, the latest with the St. Cloud Hotel? Two folks came in today, asked me, and I just gave them
Yes, sir.
what I knew. That's
It's
all.
my understanding that they have got all their permits, and there were some comments that went back from the building department, and they're supposed to start phase one, well, next week would be the end of the month, is what we were told.
What's phase one?
Phase one,
Is the roof?
I think that's what we have to do, the way I understand it, they have to lift the roof off, do some shoring, put it back. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a minute to thank Nasim and his team for all the work that you guys have done on to try to fix the pipe collapse on Old Canoe Creek Road. I just want to point out for everyone, there are 7 additional road crossings on that same ditch: Sergeant Graham, Neptune, Hancock, Pine Lake, Buttinger, Canoe Creek, and Missouri. So I didn't know if we'd have an opportunity to use the remaining contingency funds from that project, from the pipe collapse, or stormwater funds to inspect all those pipes to make sure if there's an issue. They're probably, all those pipes are probably the same age in those ditch crossings on those roads. Just do an inspection because I don't want to run into the same issue later down the road.
Are they all metal?
Likely. It was the old DOT ditch, so they use CMP for pretty much everything.
Mayor, could I have Nasim address that?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Nasim Gandor, Public Works Director. Yes, sir. In regards to the other crossings in the same area along the channel, Scott Adams and also John Moore, who were here earlier today, we've already gone out and did some preliminary inspections and kind of doing determinations and so forth in regards to, making sure that they're being maintained, and of course, what would our future any kind of future repairs would have to be, say like that. So yeah, we've already, especially when this Old Canoe Creek Road occurred, the first thing in our mind, of course, other than making sure that the Old Canoe Creek Road area, the collapse was saved, was to go and start making sure that we were double checking everything else out there, regardless how recent it was inspected. So on that, in regards to expenditures of money, for this for other things, I'll have to defer to the procurement director, who would know more about how to spend money.
Thank you. I just want to make sure because we have the Stormwater Enterprise Fund and, we have room for things like that. I just want to make sure, because those are some also heavily traveled roadways that.
I have a question, Mayor, if I could, for
Go
Nasim.
ahead.
Did they do like non-destructive inspections on these, and do they, you know what I'm talking about? Do they do that kind of inspection? Because I know the pipes in the city had just been recently inspected, including the one that collapsed, so the value of that is.
Yeah, that's true.
But is that something we can, I'm sure it's expensive, but, we don't want this to occur again.
Yes, sir. My last discussion with Scott Adams, the Stormwater and Streets Superintendent, was to get a plan together along with the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer, in order to, what's our way forward in order to ensure that we're doing a concise work as well as more efficient as well. So yeah, non-destructive testing would definitely be something that we'll be looking into.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks.
Nathan, can I add something?
Mr. Askew had his light on first.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm done. Sorry.
You done? Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cameron Crandall sits on the LMS, the Local Mitigation Strategy Group, that prioritizes projects and puts them in line for FEMA funding. So these would be good to put on that list to go after FEMA money, that whenever a hurricane happens, money comes to the community and you have to be on the LMS to be eligible for the money. So I know there's other pipe crossings that are on that list. It would be a good thing to start with that. But also, I would just tell you from my experience, I've had where we knew like a culvert was aged, and we hired experts to go through it, and they said, yeah, you should probably replace that, but it wasn't imminent. The next rain event, the road collapsed. So you can't really tell. I mean, if you know the pipe is aged, you need to pretty much put it on the list to replace it. And like, you know, we had programs where we would like literally go look at a pipe after every storm event, but you can't, I mean, it's just going to fail when it fails. Just like this one, you know, you can't really predict. So just my experience with it. Yeah, it's fine. Just replace it when you get a chance. Collapse.
Yeah. Well, then let's put a plan in place
Right.
to replace all those crossings.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
I know that in the past, the city has benefited from federal grant money for expanding and hiring police officers. I know that I've been told that there's $415 million of federal grant money that's available for the hiring of police officers, and I was wondering if this was something maybe our federal lobbyists could possibly help us investigate and apply for. I know it's a grant process is very complicated, but we benefited quite significantly from it in the past, and we certainly might could take advantage of it now. And would you just pursue checking into that?
I will. I spoke to the police chief yesterday, and I told him we'll throw everything we have at it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That would be awesome. I don't have anything else. At this time, we come to our information section, report section. Thursday, January 30th, there will be a city council workshop at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Is everybody going to be here for that?
I will not be here.
You will not be here?
No.
All the rest of us?
Let me check.
Thursday, February the 6th, there'll be a Community Redevelopment Agency meeting at 6 p.m. in council chambers. Thursday, February the 13th, there will be our next city council meeting at 6:30 p.m. here at council chambers. I'd like to remind you that the warrant list number 5 is available, a report for your review. With that, there's nothing else on the agenda. I will call this meeting adjourned.